The Wall Street Journal is reporting that telecommunications giant WorldCom may declare bankruptcy tonight.
They sold to one of the bigger providers who then went bankrupt. So basically, they sold their business for nothing.
Nothing.
We had no notice. It was like, you need to have this done by the end of the day, or this message was self-destruct.
Like you said, that was probably the worst part of my entire ISP career. You can think you're worth whatever you want, but then you have to find the sucker who's going to buy it.
So a few weeks ago, we talked about mergers and acquisitions. Now we're going to really take a different tone on this. We're going to talk about actually selling your ISP, right? So, gentlemen, how do people decide and evaluate who they're going to sell to, not just for how much?
Not just the highest bidder.
Not just the highest bidder.
Right. I think if it's to another ISP, whether they're small or big or somewhere in between, you probably know quite a bit about them. They probably have purchased other ISPs in the past. And I would say if that's the case, that's a great place to go. Knock on some doors, send some, LinkedIn in-mails if you don't already know these people, quite frankly, and ask how
I love
it
that
went.
you use the branded in-mail.
I mean, it's important, not just a message, an in-mail. This is important stuff. And get the answers, right? Like, how did it actually go? I think that is your best way if it's another ISP. If it's to private equity, that's going to be a very different process. But in ways, I think it should be easier. I think that they should be able to tell you everything, right? They have a thesis, ask about it. And they should be overjoyed to have you meet other people within the portfolio companies, right? And then you can talk to them and really see how it's going. If they're not willing to do that, huge red flag.
So, I mean, I live this because I sold my ISP. So this is a two-way street. This is not just a one-way transaction. You're not just selling your ISP to the other ISP in my case. But, we also evaluate that ISP. You're all signing NDAs. And so besides me giving him all my data, he gave me all his data because I wanted to make sure, when this took place, it was going to take place and it was going to be.
And things weren't just going to evaporate.
It wasn't going to just evaporate. You maybe have some emotional attachment, so you want to find out. I don't want to sell it to, and I will not say the name, another ISP that is in my area who goes unnamed.
We do not speak his name.
It could be anybody, but
But I think that's a story. That's an age-old story. There are competitors in your area that you have friendly competition with, and you have competitors in your area that you would take on the mat with, and you weren't going to sell them your baby.
And in this
not
case,
that we're
we
selling
were
babies.
good because not that we're selling babies. That's a whole different.
That's another
business.
episode.
Got a whole different set of guidelines and stuff. We'll do that in a different podcast. But not really,
Or not.
or not. Yeah, no. Anybody watching this, that was a joke. Please do disregard everything I said there. But how's this going to impact your customers? You take that into account some, and we'll probably expand on that a bit. But
Because that's my next question.
it's coming up, yeah, right. But is a buyer financially able? Because a lot of these aren't all cash up front too. At the end, they're over time. So you're putting your trust in them to, run this operation to the point where they're going to be able to complete the transaction. And I know an ISP that sold way, way back in the day. It was the company that we had gotten our service from when we first started our ISP, called Finnet. And they sold to one of the bigger providers who then went bankrupt, and they sold on a completely stock transaction basis and had to hold it for a year. Well, within that year, they went bankrupt. So basically, they sold their business for nothing.
And to be fair, the transactions that I'm saying, I'm not saying operators sell off their entire business. I am saying some of the operators selling off a footprint, an area, geographic region, or maybe they're only selling off their fixed wireless portion of their business because they're converting into
Sure,
fiber.
that's always an
So
option.
it's not that they're completely going out of business. They just want to divest themselves of this portion of it. And I think it's important to pay attention to who they're selling that to as well, for all the things that you just brought up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's a two-way street. You really got to know who you're selling to, and they have to, know you as well.
So you alluded to the question of how do you prepare your staff and ultimately your customers for a sale, and when do you prepare them? Is it once it's a done deal?
I didn't allude to that question because I say you don't. You don't prepare your staff and your customer, at least at my level, until it's a done deal.
Until it's a done deal.
Or until it's until it's the day of the done deal.
It may not be prepared, but I think maybe the underlying question is, how do you communicate this to your staff, to your customers? They may find out the same day that everyone else does, just because of the logistics of the deal.
They did find out the same day in my case, and that was intentional. A bit
pretty much
surprised
industry standard, yeah.
Because I had to go to a lot of town meetings because the leases said, that these were only between me and I, and if I wanted to sell it to a subsidiary, I had to get approval. So I had to get those approvals, and I'm shocked it didn't leak, but it apparently didn't because, it did catch the staff off guard. But then after that, the communication is key. And as we talk about in everything, the communication is key. So they find out the day of, but you need to communicate the day of, and you need to keep communicating on a regular basis, a regular cadence.
I would argue that it's probably easier to communicate to your customers overall. Like it's still hard and it takes a plan. And to your point, like you can't really over communicate. Like if you put a plan together and it feels like it's overkill, like double it and then you'll probably be close. Like genuinely. You cannot over communicate this stuff with staff. What comes to mind when we sold, there was a very small circle cone of silence situation, and obviously as a result most staff didn't know, and you have all these side quests to do as you get closer to the deal being closed. And we were very close to the end, and there really wasn't too much funny business. Maybe a few people that were really paying attention were raising eyebrows. Who are these people going in and out, that kind of thing. But one of our side quests was we had to, and this is the way it works in Ontario, to transfer the commercial vehicles over, they needed to be safety certified again, like inspected again.
Mm-hmm.
So I had
it's a breadcrumb
to come up with some cockamamie excuse, and I don't remember what I said, but nobody bought it as to why I think I said we were switching insurance companies, but it was so gross to have to that was the first time in that whole journey where I had to lie to people's faces. I was just fabricating, lying my way out of a paper bag, just trying to get to that date when we could communicate it. And everyone was just like, what the hell is going on? We had to, we were canceling installs to do this. Like it didn't make sense. And then finally, it was days after, if that, then the news broke and everyone was like, well, we knew something was going on.
We did rolling installs. We didn't actually cancel any installs. We kept going straight through.
I'm saying to get the vans off.
I had to get the vans off the road. Okay, right. Yeah.
Yeah. Why would you ever do that?
Right. Yeah. That's
you did what?
Never. In fact, we found
cleared your calendar.
We found the garages that worked on Saturdays, so we could drop the van off on Friday and pick it up Monday morning.
Yeah, we had no notice. It was like, you need to have this done by the end of the day or this message will self-destruct. Yeah.
And it's wild. I think everybody who's going through the proposition of selling their business has hoops that they have to jump through, and they're trying to manage the controlled message. You don't want to let that leak out across the company, with not wanting to lie to the people that are your coworkers and colleagues.
It's the worst. I think what I did after that was just double down on the sincerity, really connected with people, apologized, and I was very careful about any subsequent information shared, because if you're not certain about something, don't go out on a limb. Anything that you get wrong can and will be used against you, and it should, quite frankly. These are, when they're handled perfectly, these are very fragile, tumultuous, emotional things. So you contributing to that, either intentionally or accidentally, is only just throwing gas on the fire. So I think you have to be really, really careful when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I've been through several acquisitions where the company I was working for has been acquired in my professional career, and a couple have gone seamlessly, flawlessly. As an employee, I might have been surprised, but I wasn't really. You kind of knew
Yeah.
what the company's master plan was, right? But they don't always go well, and there can be a lot of discontent, a lot of uncertainty with your staff, and then the customers are a totally different creature because they know, like, and trust Larry. They know, like, and trust the company that you were working for, and now there's this great unknown.
But that can really be addressed in communications. I mean, we really poured on the communications to assure our customers that this was going to be a good transition, that we have really worked with this company, that they believe the things we believe, and they're going to take care of you in a way that's important. The staff is the harder part. I mean, the staff was shocked. There were definitely tears that day, I guarantee it.
Oh, sure.
Because there's a grief
between
process in
everybody,
it.
there's grief, and there's right, and like Rick said, you really care, like we care about these customers in our community. If you're doing it right, you really care about this staff. You really care about everybody who's working for you, and I did, and so that the hiding it was horrible. Like you said, that was probably the worst part of my entire ISP career.
Yeah.
But it was time, and it was the right decision.
It's unavoidable. And I think that's the thing is kind of psychologically preparing yourself when you enter into this process. Like, even if it goes as well as it can go, it is going to be wrought with emotion and conflict and turmoil. And that's if everything goes to plan.
So we've touched on this just a little bit, but how does selling to a private equity or a PE-backed entity differ from selling to a competitor or a neighborhood friendly, if you will?
Tremendously. I would say it's in each case you're looking to divest yourself of the business, but even that maybe won't be the same. I think one of the cardinal differences is, generally speaking, if you're a smaller ISP selling to a larger ISP, they're not going to need too much from you being the owner, founder, CEO, or whatever, right? That they already have one of those, and probably the point of it, you kind of want to take your golden parachute and get the hell out of there, right? You may not have that option as such with PE because they want to invest. They see opportunity in your business. It's doing well. They can throw gas in the fire and grow it and bring it to new heights that you never could have alone.
It's a different vision, potentially.
And they still need you a lot of the time. They're not necessarily looking to bring in a new operations team, and they may need you to stay on as a leader. And I think a lot of the time what that means is you're going to have more accountability than ever as compared to being a founder entrepreneur, but much less input than you would have had before. So talk about psychologically preparing yourself for something. You're not just, kind of taking your check and piecing out. You may have to stick around, and those times are negotiated, and maybe it's just a transitionary period. Maybe it's something longer. Maybe you take a permanent role. But if you're growing your business for, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 years, whatever, and you're used to having the freedom that comes with being a founder entrepreneur type figure, now you're on the staff and someone else is calling the shots. That's a huge culture shock.
Going from being an owner to being
being an employee
again.
Yeah.
Right. No,
not being the decision maker necessarily.
Those are two very different paths. I mean, one, we would never have, the PE didn't make any sense. That would have not been an avenue for us to look at or pursue, because that wasn't what I wanted in the end, because of the things that Rick just said, which are all true. When you get the competitor, he's looking to roll up. He's looking to get bigger. He's looking to cover more of the territory. He's going to take your brand and he's going to consume it. It's going to become his brand. With the PE, maybe not. I mean, they're not going to rename you. If that's what their studies have shown and their thesis says, you've got incredible market recognition, they're not changing the name. They're gonna keep it the same.
generally speaking, if PE's buying you, you're probably doing things right. So
Right.
yeah, to come in and melon ball the whole thing doesn't make a lot of sense. If they're just buying you for your customers because they already have something going and they've got someone on the edge of your territory, I guess that's possible, but I wouldn't say that's the common theme.
But you better have amazing processes and documentation and stuff if you're going the PE route, because they're going to want all that data. Like Rick said, the competitor buying you, tell me how many towers you've got, how many subscribers you've got, and if you can get me a list of your hardware, it's awesome. I guarantee that's not going to be what the PE is asking for.
That's a good point too.
They're going to want a lot more reporting from you.
Now, if you're selling to a tier 1, you're going to have a similar amount of invasive diligence, I would say, and you got to be prepared for that. You got skeletons; they're going to find them.
And not every sale goes through. It's just the nature of the beast.
Really good point too.
Not every sale goes through, and I'm seeing that fairly frequently.
Yes.
People are under a letter of intent. They're marching down the road, and for whatever reason, the buyer can't come up with the capital, or the seller ultimately decides they don't want to sell. Things can blow up.
Yep. So that is why you need the cone of silence.
It's not working. It's not working!
Imagine if you're just telling your staff every time you go through diligence, it's something that may or may not happen. It's like telling your kids, you meet your new mom and it's your first date with somebody. It's, hopefully it works out.
Yikes.
Every time you go on that first date, right? Yeah.
Wow.
The analogies that we can come up with. Selling ISP to meet your new mom.
Right.
Didn't cross my mind when I sold my ISP, but
no, that was how it landed.
Oh my goodness. I've got one more question. Both of you already sold. What is your one piece of advice to someone who's thinking about putting their ISP up for sale? What's the one thing that you think you wish somebody had told you to think about before you sold? And I know it's a little different because you were actually an owner. You were operating at a higher level. But what's one piece of advice you'd share with someone who's thinking about selling their ISP?
Look at your reasons behind it and make sure they're solid. Because like you said, you've seen people bailing out because I don't think they've given it the full thought and the full effort. If it's coming from their side, if it's coming from the other side, you don't have any control. But, figure out why you really want this and have a plan afterwards. Unless you're just planning to go sip margaritas on the beach for the rest of your life.
Margaritas and bonbons.
Which, I knew I wasn't planning to do. I actually landed exactly where I intended to be once I sold my business. So I'm pretty excited for that. And I think that's an important, because you do have the rest of your life after that as an owner.
Life after. Rick, what about you?
I think nowadays more than ever, there is a lot of options when it comes to, exiting, or you brought up a really good point. Like maybe you're not outright selling, maybe you're selling off your wireless business. Like there's different influencing factors as to why you may want to either sell your whole business or a part of your business. So I would say just making sure that you understand what that spectrum of options are. Selling to a competitor maybe does make sense if it's more just that you've kind of you've reached this. I always envision scaling a business like a staircase. You got your risers and you got your treads, right? Everything's cool until it's not, and then you got this hurdle to get over. And if you've got a really big riser in front of you, if that's just like you're just kind of throwing in the towel because you're just like, I don't know how to get over this, it may be a mechanism to solve that problem. But if you weren't actually ready to be done with the business, I think you're going to carry around that unfinished business, that feeling of regret or possibly wondering what if. So look at funding options, look at, there's a lot of different ways that you can, kind of change the way. If you've been just bootstrapping things, you don't have to do it that way. You can bring in private debt. There's a lot of different things you can do. Or like I said, if you find the right PE partner, it could be that opportunity to get to the next level. They have expertise. Generally, they have really narrow lanes that they kind of stay in and thrive in, and they know what they're doing. So if you kind of just outgrew your business, but you're not done with the journey. If you can prepare yourself to take on that new capacity within the organization, you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. You get a nice check. You can still be a part of the story, and when you're done with it, you can walk out and have no regrets.
Not to be Debbie Downer to end this segment of our time today, but I also think succession planning is important. And I know people don't think about it, but if you're a smaller operator and God forbid something happens to you, is there a plan in place? Do people know what you would want to do? Does a spouse know what to do? What would be the next place to go to? It happens. We have had operators pass away, be killed. We went through an exercise internally at work that's a what if exercise. If God forbid you were hit by a bus tomorrow, how would your position be taken care of? And I think that's a valid thing for all operators to work their way through. Because you don't know, and it depends on where you are in that scale of lifetime in operations. Is it as simple as Keyman Insurance, you're going to pay off your debts and close up the doors? Or is it a business that could actually be asset-based that you could sell off down the line and help take care of your family? Or is it a bigger play because you've got multiple investors that somebody else is going to come in and take that spot? So I think it's definitely something to think about when you're talking about selling an ISP. It may not be that you're doing it on purpose or that's your actual plan. It's that circumstances altered cases.
It was one of the big factors for me is that exact thing. I mean, there is, nothing physically wrong with me at this point, other than I obviously carry around too much weight. But I started to think about, if that happened to me, what would happen? And the business, though my wife and I started it, we also found it was work in the business together, be married, not both. And we chose the right one, be married.
Yeah.
So she couldn't have taken it over. She wouldn't have had and we weren't large enough that there was enough internal staff that could assume all the responsibilities. So the reality became, we've built a pretty decent business, don't let that be something that just wipes it all out.
Well, what would happen? We're talking about all of this consideration, all of this nuance, and this is through the eyes of the person that founded this business. If it's so challenging for themselves to navigate it, their child that may or may not have anything to do with it, what are the chances that they're going to navigate a sale successfully, to do right by the employees, do right by the customers, and cash out in an effective way? That was the nest egg. That was the idea. That's how the family was going to move on. So I think it's a really, it's a little bit, dark, but it's a really, really great point, because it's not just me knowing as the founder or the owner. It's me codifying these things and into a plan.
Planning.
Yep.
Running an ISP, you're not just managing a network, you're supporting a community. Sonar gives you the operational power to do both brilliantly. Explore how at sonar.software. All right, guys, I'm excited because we're back to love it or hate it for this episode. Oh, you're really thinking about this, aren't you?
What are the questions?
I'm afraid that you're going to hit me with that, but that's okay. First question. Every ISP has a price. Love it or hate it? Love it? Love it?
Love it.
Love it.
I love it. Do I believe it? No.
Really?
Because I have met the ISP that doesn't have a price that will not sell no matter what.
There's always a person that comes to mind. Yeah.
Would run it into the ground before they would sell their business, and wouldn't look at.
Oh, see, then I would have to vote hate it if you knew somebody who would never sell.
I love it. Every ISP has a price. I think that is the real answer. I think they do, but there is always, to every answer there's the exception. I just happen to know the exception, and but business is supposed to be a think about it.
Yep.
When you get ready to sell your business, it shouldn't be I woke up this morning, I have that problem I can't solve, I'm selling the business, this is horrible. This is this is a planned effort.
Tell me more about why you love that statement. Every ISP has a price.
I think it's true. I think with the exception of very few things in life, everything has its price. Certainly a business entity would have to be in that pile, right? Now, I won't say their name, but when you said that, I also had someone pop in my, maybe they're even the same person.
Maybe.
But, yes, there's the exception to the rule where there's a lot of pride wrapped up in there, and it's more of a principled thing than anything else. I still believe that if, someone walked up with a $1 trillion check, I mean,
Okay,
right? Taken at its face value, every business has its price. You'd be crazy not to. But I think kind of what's hidden in this question is like, you may not be looking to sell your business, and maybe you're approached with an offer and you're feeling like I would say still hear it out. You just don't know what they're looking for. Maybe somehow it's this perfect missing puzzle piece in this other very well-funded business, and maybe it's not what you had planned, but if there's the right amount of zeros on, I mean, if you're so resolute that I don't even want to hear it, I don't want to entertain offers, I don't want to pick up the phone if someone's asking that question, what does it hurt to talk to someone?
Okay, right. So there is a price. I mean, at some point, even the person you think has no price.
But what if the value of their business is way less than what the person really thinks it's worth? I mean, the statement I love because I think it's right. It's just not always a price that you could really sell for in good conscience. I don't know. It's a tough call.
Well, right, but you have your price as the ISP. That doesn't mean you're going to get the price. You can think you're worth whatever you want, but then you have to find the sucker who's going to buy it. If you're really not worth that, and good luck, because even the competitors are not going to just go out and foolishly.
It's very rare that someone's going to pay over market for anything.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this actually goes into the next question. It's holding on too long is worse than selling too early. Holding on too long is worse than selling too early. Love it or hate it?
Yeah, love it.
I feel the love on this one too. I think that's a true
Look at
statement.
us, kumbaya.
Kumbaya. Are we gonna hold hands now?
No, I am holding a paddle.
Holding on too long, and in this quickly shifting market, I think can really be detrimental to people, and planning is going to be important. What other thoughts do you have on this?
I mean, when you form the exit strategy, I mean, if you got one, most businesses should have something like that. What is your end game? You need to have that. When I started, I admit, I think I lived into this. Back in the heyday dial-up days, MindSpring, for all those that you remember them, were buying ISPs left and right at ridiculous amounts. Guess who
didn't take that offer?
Guess who couldn't get themselves to give up their business?
You weren't ready.
I wasn't ready, right? So I mean, I fell into that. Every ISP has a price. I should have probably taken that price, but it wasn't time. So I think and we had a growth plan in place. So I mean, we knew where we were going, even though they pretty much made a blanket offer to all ISPs at that point, $240 a sub or something like that in the dial-up days.
Damn. And that was their plan.
Right. And
you had your plan.
And where is MindSpring today?
Yeah. But
maybe not a great plan they had,
But to your point, you've got a plan A, but one of our favorite terms, everyone has a plan until you're punched in the face or kicked in the teeth or whatever you want to say. That's true too, and that's kind of what I think about with this question. The reason that I say love it, I think that absolutely over time it became so apparent that the timing of our exit was correct. I would say emotionally, we weren't done yet. So I can really kind of, that resonates.
And that's where that grief plays into it too.
Yeah. We can do more here. We can do more good here. But there are external factors that maybe the plan that you wrote out no longer is relevant because the market is shifting or whatever is changing. And if you're not prepared to take on those challenges, or it's just no longer the right thing, that's holding on too long. You miss your opportunity and you become that guy that goes down with the ship.
Right. Don't be so rigid. You let your company's value plummet to zero.
Because that's on everybody. At the end of the day, if you run your company into the ground, you're not doing right by your employees either, right? Like when you sell the company, maybe some of them are going to be made redundant. Maybe some of them keep their jobs. If you run your business into the ground, no one keeps their job.
True story. All right. Final question for this segment. Customers don't care who owns the company. Love it or hate it? Oh, I'm a hater.
I don't like the wording of that question. Can I be really pedantic?
You can be pedantic.
And maybe if you want to sharpen the pencil, I'll flip this to one side or the other. Is it that no customers care? Like, you know what I mean?
This is generality. Customers in general don't care who owns the company.
I think some do and some don't.
All right, Larry, you go ahead and defend your love over there, and I'll defend my hate, and we'll see which one of us takes Rick home with us.
I think
what a
some
prize!
I think some do and some don't. No, no, I'm just going with Rick now. I'm gonna put mine to the side. No, I'm only kidding. I said love it because customers care about the way you're treating them. They don't care that Larry. They don't care about Larry. I mean, our customers knew Larry and stuff, but if you had somebody who had my same values and supported their customers in the same way, in the end, they don't care it's Larry. They want to be treated in a specific way, and they want to be, the community part, we all know the community part's huge for the small ISP. But that community part can be built by Larry or somebody who shares Larry's values.
You know what? I go back to our very first episode and people doing business with people. And I do think customers in general care who own the company. They care that meet the needs of the company, of their communities. They care that there's values and vision, and that it's not just this nameless, faceless,
evil megacorp.
Getting things done. It's we're doing business with the people that are building our brand, building our communities.
And I'm not disagreeing with that. I just don't think they care who it is. I think that, you can plug in multiple people who meet those criteria and live that value set, and it doesn't matter. So I mean, maybe we're just playing a word game, because it sounds like we both are saying the same.
With pedantic,
I
so
know,
we're
right?
playing
So we
a
are
word
playing
game.
a word game, right? And he's still holding it sideways, so
and
he's still.
And we're going to play Scrabble after this, so we'll see if he pulls out a cue. I don't know.
Well,
which way are you going to go now? You're going to have to vote.
You both brought up some good points. Larry, you're right. If all things are equal, then probably customers don't. When the heck is that ever going to be like in the real world? Of course, it will never be the same. So I can't fully align to that. And I agree with what you're saying, that there are some people that all things equal, even if everything was equal, if you said, these are your two options, everything's the same, but your $50 a month here goes to the national company, and your $50 a month here goes to this family-run business that has been part of the community, and they live in your backyard. There is some portion of your subscriber base that will make that choice. So I think how was it worded again?
You hate it.
No, okay.
There we go.
I hate it.
Customers don't care who owns the company.
Yep. Okay.
Hate the sentence.
Yes, hate it.
I win.
You win.
Yay!
If this conversation hit home, take a second to subscribe to Bandwidth on YouTube. We've got more raw, real talk on topics that matter most to local ISPs. And subscribing is the best way to make sure you don't miss a beat.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to go to our what if scenario. And my question for the afternoon is, what if your network tech stack is aging DOCSIS? I imagine a little walker on aging DOCSIS. Invest in a fiber upgrade first to raise valuation, or sell now and let the buyer handle it?
All right, well, I'm going to flip the question from DOCSIS because I wasn't a cable or fiber operator. So, but it was wireless. So I think the question, comes down. It's the same question. It doesn't matter what technology you want to plug into the question. You got to
fill in the blank of what the aging infrastructure is.
You got to do the business math. So if you're planning to sell, do the math. If I leave it as is, the person who's buying it is going to see that. They're going to understand that they have this huge CapEx investment in front of them. And the number that they're going to come back to you with is going to reflect that, so that they're going to see that. If you do the entire upgrade, well, now you've assumed all the risk. And is that going to raise your valuation that high? Maybe. If you can prove that it is going to, then I see no reason. But I don't think you can. And so, by assuming all the risk, and so we kind of ended up with a hybrid approach to that. We were using some older wireless gear,
to be unnamed.
To be unnamed, right? And we switched to some other newer wireless gear, also
to be unnamed.
Because we want to keep everybody happy. But we knew that was valuable, and we knew that when we went out and looked for somebody to be interested in us, that having B versus A was going to be good. Now, we weren't done by the time we sold. We had plans in place, but we could show that we had it all worked out.
Wheels were in motion.
We knew what the costs were going to be. We knew what the plan was going to be. We knew what the rollout time frame was going to be, and that was valuable. So it really, I think the blend of it and really looking at the math. Does it math?
Does it math?
Yeah, that's definitely the right place to start, right? You can take out a piece of paper or something digital and you can figure that out. And that's where you should start. However, I think how ratty tatty are things? Because if you're looking at selling, it's a process. A house of cards is not going to survive due diligence. You can't keep adding customers at the rate that you're adding customers if everything is falling apart. Like, if you've pushed it too far, you could be jeopardizing your whole deal. You may have to do this out of necessity. If it's not that far in, then yes, do exactly what Larry said, and the math will tell you what to do.
And you're going to run it all through AI, and then the human is going to make the ultimate decision.
Not what I sold. AI would have been like, ask, I don't know.
Ask Jeeves.
Goodbye. Should have asked Jeeves.
Next time on Bandwidth, we're talking about something every operator has lived through. Good culture, bad culture, and what really makes a team work. From toxic mergers to community-first mindsets, we're sharing the stories and lessons that shaped how we lead today. We'll see you there.
Remember, when you connect communities, you unlock what's possible. Until next time.